Hi there, this is Dani, and the channel is You and Me Living Free. I'm so glad you're here. Here's my best picture of sand dunes, Coral Pink Sand Dunes National Park in southern Utah. It's about 30 minutes out of Kanab, and I'm going to tell you to skip it unless you go right at sunset, or unless you have an ATV that you were going to ride around in the sand dunes. I think it was an okay thing to do. For me, I was around Kanab for 4 or 5 days. I had all the time in the world. It was 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, so it was worth it for me. It cost $10 to get into the state park. One of the best things about it was the drive there was gorgeous. I didn't even capture the most beautiful part because that's how it is taking video. Here's the other thing. Look at this. Something told me to have my camera ready, and I was, and there's a whole little mini herd of deer. And I just kept sitting here because I was like, okay, I'm just making sure there aren't any more that are coming across. I love it when those things happen spontaneously and I happen to have my camera out. That is like so awesome. So anyway, here's driving out. Here's when I was actually there. There's just a short little walkway to an overlook. And these were a couple of shots I took of the dunes themselves. Now, a couple things I'm just going to mention. I did not feel like trudging through the sand. You know, walking through deep, soft sand is very tiring, and I'm not in that great shape. It just wasn't really calling to me. And I couldn't see any pinkness at all. I was like, are these things even named right? Coral pink sand dunes, because I don't really see much pinkness. So then I start to pan around. You can see a little bit of orangey glow there in the sand right in front of the overlook here that I'm looking at. And as I pan across, you'll see that it's the sunlight. It's the way the sun is shining and the quality of the sunlight. Look how now it just looks like regular sand. It looks like white / very light tan sand everywhere. And that's all you can see. You can see some people climbing that big dune there. It does give you an idea how big it is. And, you know, I might have gotten some better shots if I had felt like taking a hike out onto the dunes themselves, but it was just not there for me to do. So by this point, I was completely underwhelmed. The deer were the only bright spot. I decided to go ahead and go back to Kanab. And then I decided that if I felt like it, I would drive out at about 5 or 5:30, about an hour before sunset, and see if I could get a better view, because the $10 would cover me that whole day until 10 p.m. So I thought, well, maybe I'll take another shot at it, you know, and we'll see what it looks like. So this is me leaving the park, just pulled over to the side because that was a gorgeous view. That was even better than mostly what I've had in the park. This is another view where you can see, if you're on an ATV, there are all these places for you to explore and everything. So that's why I really thought, if you have an ATV or you go right at sunset, then it might be worth it depending on your time constrictions and everything. I'm not going to discourage anybody from going if it is something that is actually calling to you, because hey, if something calls to you, then you go no matter what anybody else says, right? Here's another fun thing that happened when I was on my way back to town. There are cattle crossing signs all over along this road to get to the Coral Pink Sand Dunes. And so I just thought this was so much fun. I saw this truck and he was kind of guiding these cows out onto the road. So I parked and I parked to the side, and then I put on my hazards, and then I kind of waved at the next couple of cars that came up, because I just had a horrible, like, kind of vision in my mind of one of the cars hitting one of the cows or something. So you're over a little crest here, so you're coming downhill, so it would have been easy for someone who wasn't paying attention and who was speeding really badly. So anyway, I just stood there until they were all well under control. Another thing I did when I was on my way back to town is I was looking for some BLM land where I could pull in and make a video, where I might even possibly spend the night. So I kept pulling over, and there were a bunch of spots out there that had 14-day camping. But here's my issue. Here's one right here. as soon as you're on the road and you're barely going back, it looks like really, really firm, compact sand. But then as soon as you get a little tiny way back, the sand is all loose and soft and gushy. And so I was afraid of getting stuck. And I cannot tell you how many of these little pull-offs that I went to. I always walk it first. If I'm worried about the van getting stuck, I had no cell coverage out here. If I'm worried about the van getting stuck at all, I will walk it. So here's me coming back to the park. Okay, I killed some afternoon time in Kanab and I came back out to the park, hour round trip drive, and it does look better at sunset. Look at that. And mostly it looks better because the sand is looking a little orange, but also you can see the beauty of the rock behind it. And here you can see a couple of vehicles and a bunch of people. That just gives you an idea of the scale. It didn't seem like they were all that enormous to me. Of course, if I was out there walking in them, they probably would have seemed bigger. But this was pretty again, but I just didn't see it as, you know, anything completely spectacular or whatever. And I'll say this is really interesting. Here is actually what I'm going to show you here is these are two mountain ranges. The one is ending and then you can see it kind of low, and then on the right, if I had kept going, there's another mountain range. That area in there between the ranges, that is the whole reason we have the dunes at all, because the wind is very, very strong and it comes to a point where it pulls that sandstone off of those structures and deposits it here in this little valley. Here's another little interaction with some wildlife. This is officially a coral pink sand dune tiger beetle. This is the only place in the world where they exist, so that was kind of fun that he showed up. And this is the only selfie I took that I'm going to show you, because you can just see how, you know, that certain time of day when everything starts to look golden yellow. That's the kind of time of day it was here right before sunset. And I also kind of wanted to show it because the camera is really pulling out the orange in everything. I left these pictures in order that I took them so you would know. This is the same time of night that this picture is taken. It's just a different angle and a different sand dune. So everything about the dunes, just like everything in this whole area, is all about the sunlight. This, to me, looks dramatic and beautiful. And those other pictures where they were earlier in the morning were just so underwhelming. So hey, it took me 2 trips out here, but I got to see the deer and the cows and the tiger beetle, and this was my favorite shot of all. And you can even see a person there up on the top. This is the biggest dune. Anyway, for me, it was well worth it. For you, you be the judge of you. And thank you so much for being here. Believe it or not, you made it to the end of another video, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. See you next time.